Welcome to History Whispers, the podcast where voices of the past breathe into the present. I'm your host, Emma Carter. Today, we begin our series on the greatest philosophers who ever lived, and we're starting with a man who didn't just write about Stoicism, he ruled an empire with it. I'm honored to welcome our guest, the brilliant historian, Dr. Rees Morgana. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Emma. It's a privilege to be here.
Before we dive deeper, Dr. Rees, could you start by giving us a broad picture of who Marcus Aurelius was, his early life, the world he was born into, and what shaped him into the philosopher-emperor we know today?
Emma, I personally believe that King Marcus Aurelius was not just one of Rome's greatest emperors. He was, in my view, one of the greatest minds humanity has produced. He carried the weight of the Roman world on his shoulders, and yet never let it weigh down his soul. His life wasn't just power and politics. It was a living meditation on virtue, responsibility, and the meaning of existence. Emperor Marcus Aurelius was born in 121 AD into an aristocratic Roman family. But even from a young age, he stood apart. Unlike many boys of his class who were groomed for politics or military glory, Marcus was drawn to philosophy, to stillness, to introspection. The Emperor Hadrian noticed his potential early on. In fact, he nicknamed Marcus Verissimus, the most truthful. That nickname stuck, and so did Marcus's character. He was adopted into the imperial line by Antoninus Pius, which essentially placed him on a path to the throne. But rather than growing arrogant, he became even more self-disciplined. His education was exceptional. He studied under some of the greatest minds of his age, Fronto for rhetoric, Rusticus for Stoic discipline, and Sextus of Chaeronea, who modeled quiet dignity. These weren't just tutors, they were spiritual guides. Marcus later wrote in Meditations, "From Rusticus, I learned to read carefully and not be satisfied with a superficial understanding." And that's exactly how he approached life, carefully, reflectively, never superficially. Even as he climbed the political ladder, becoming consul and eventually emperor, Marcus never abandoned philosophy. He didn't see leadership and wisdom as opposites. He saw them as partners. And that's what shaped him into the man we admire today. Not just a ruler, but a philosopher of profound moral gravity, living at the heart of one of history's most powerful empires, and never letting that power corrupt his soul.
That's extraordinary, truly. I mean, it's almost unimaginable, isn't it? A man who ruled the most powerful empire in the world, yet lived by the principles of philosophy and chose simplicity over excess? How did Marcus manage to balance such immense power with such deep personal discipline? What allowed him to stay grounded amidst all that authority?
It really is almost impossible to believe. Marcus Aurelius had legions at his command, senators under his authority, and a treasury that could have built endless monuments in his name. And yet, he writes in Meditations, "Don't waste what remains of your life in speculating about others. It is not given to us to know what others think. So why concern yourself with what they say or do?" This is a man who wore the purple robe of an emperor, but thought like a monk. His commitment to philosophy wasn't just an intellectual exercise. It was his way of surviving power. He understood that power was corrosive, that luxury breeds detachment, and praise inflates the ego. So he trained himself daily to resist it. In his book, he writes, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." In other words, Marcus viewed every temptation, flattery, gold, comfort, as a test. Could he remain just? Could he remain calm? Could he remain true to himself? He wasn't detached because he rejected power. He was disciplined within power. He didn't abandon the world to find peace. He ruled it while protecting his inner world. And that, Emma, that is why philosophers still study him and leaders still fail to match him.
Amazing. You know, Dr. Rees, You've already shared a few of his quotes, and one in particular keeps echoing in my mind. He writes, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." It's so direct, so powerful. What do you think he was trying to tell us with this line? What's the deeper message behind it?
Ah, yes, that line. It's one of my absolute favorites and one of the most unforgivingly honest things Marcus Aurelius ever wrote. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. It's not advice, it's a command, and it's directed inward. You have to remember, Marcus Aurelius wasn't writing this for us. He was writing it to himself. This is a man with access to every comfort, surrounded by advisors and flatterers, ruling the most powerful empire in the world. And yet, he's sitting with a wax tablet, scolding himself. He's saying, stop theorizing, stop justifying, and stop posturing. Just live rightly. It's a line about urgency. He's reminding himself, and unknowingly all of us, that time is short. The world doesn't need more ideas about what virtue looks like. It needs examples. It also reflects one of the core Stoic values, self-responsibility. Don't wait for the world to get better. Don't blame the Senate, the gods, your enemies, or your past. If you know what's right, do it. He wrote that, likely in a cold military camp during one of the Northern Wars, surrounded by uncertainty, possibly even grief. And instead of collapsing under the pressure, he wrote that line as a way to stand up straighter. It's like he's saying, stop talking about integrity, stop admiring it in others. Be it right now.
Wow. And Dr. Rees, when Marcus writes, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one," it feels less like philosophy and more like a battle cry to himself. Like he's grabbing his own shoulders and saying, "Enough. Stop theorizing virtue. Just live it." Is that what this is? A man forcing himself out of grief, out of hesitation, not just accepting reality, but commanding himself to rise to it.
Emma, you've touched on something profound here. Because yes, this is a battle cry, but not the kind shouted from a throne. This is the whispered kind, the kind you hear in the dark when no one's watching. Marcus isn't motivating himself, he's surviving. Think about it. He's on the front lines of war, burying children, holding an empire together, and still, every dawn, he's writing, be. Just be good. Not try, not when it's easy, be. And that's the genius of it. He's not asking himself to rise to reality, he's ordering it, like a general issuing commands to his own soul. You asked if this is about acceptance. No. This is defiance against grief, against excuses, against the weakness he feared in himself. That line, it's not ink on a page. It's a man digging his nails into the cliff's edge to keep from falling.
That's really touching, Dr. Rees. But it makes me wonder, in Meditations, his personal journal that survived the ages, just how many of these raw, self-reflective quotes are there? Is there even a set number? And since we're so lucky to have Meditations today, were there other writings, lost works that vanished with time?
Emma, Meditations contains almost 3,400 plus quotes, raw, unfiltered self-commands. But remember, Marcus Aurelius wrote this on battlefields, grieving dead children, quelling rebellions. Not for us. These were combat drills against despair. As for lost works, we know he wrote speeches, letters, even dialogues, but only fragments survive. So yes, Meditations is a miracle, a drowning emperor's private roars echoing across 18 centuries.
Unbelievable. That's an incredible amount of writing. But, Dr. Rees, One powerful lesson I believe King Marcus Aurelius taught us is the profound value of writing, how transformative it can be to put pen to paper. And what's remarkable is that modern psychology has now confirmed what he practiced instinctively, that journaling is one of the most effective tools for reducing anxiety. What are your thoughts on this connection between ancient wisdom and modern science?
Exactly right. And that's what makes Marcus so extraordinary. He wasn't writing for fame or legacy. These were private battlefield journals, scrawled by lamplight in the midst of absolute chaos. As Burley's work shows us, he wrote these words surrounded by the stench of plague, the screams of the wounded, the ever-present threat of barbarian attack. Yet, in that maelstrom of violence and uncertainty, his pen became his anchor. Modern neuroscience now confirms what Marcus discovered instinctively, that the simple act of writing, "You have power over your mind," actually rewires the brain's stress response. Studies show journaling can reduce anxiety symptoms by nearly 40%. It's why therapists today prescribe what Marcus was doing naturally. So while he thought he was just steeling himself for another day of war, what he was really doing was inventing cognitive behavioral therapy some 1,800 years before its time. The original philosopher king turned out to be history's first, completely accidental therapist. And that's why modern Stoicism has exploded in popularity. Authors like Ryan Holiday, they owe their careers to these very lines. But Marcus wasn't trying to brand Stoicism like some ancient influencer. He lived it. His life was a gauntlet, the Antonine Plague wiping out millions, his most trusted general, Avidius Cassius, declaring himself emperor, endless wars on the Danube, and, cruelest of all, watching his son Commodus become everything he despised. Yet, through it all, he kept writing, not for fame, not for legacy, but to remind himself inner control is all we truly own. That's not philosophy, that's survival.
I'm totally amazed, Dr. Reese. I knew about Marcus Aurelius's legacy, but this conversation, it's making me realize his real contribution wasn't just to philosophy, but to psychology itself. And when you mentioned authors like Ryan Holiday, the obstacle is the way, ego is the enemy, it's incredible how deeply his work still inspires modern thought leaders.
Absolutely. And it's not just Holiday. Millions worldwide still cling to Marcus' words like an anchor. His legacy is alive.
Which makes me wonder, Dr. Reese, how did Marcus Aurelius safeguard such an enduring legacy? And what went so catastrophically wrong with Commodus? How could a son raised by history's philosopher king become, well, the opposite?
You've touched on Marcus Aurelius's greatest tragedy, Emma. The philosopher king who mastered himself, yet couldn't master fatherhood. He clung to dynastic duty, elevating Commodus at just 8 years old, breaking with Rome's tradition of adoptive emperors, even as tutors like Galen warned of the boy's cruelty. Historians like Cassius Dio recorded how Commodus would later disgrace the purple, brawling as a gladiator while Rome burned. And that haunting line Marcus wrote, "A wrongdoer often leaves something undone," reads now like his private confession. Modern scholars believe he knew Commodus was unfit, knew he should have disinherited him after the Saturninus revolt. But Marcus the emperor couldn't do what Marcus the Stoic preached. He couldn't put wisdom above blood. So his legacy endures despite his son, not through him. The man who taught us to transform obstacles met one even he couldn't overcome, a father's love.
Dr. Reese, you've made such a compelling case that Marcus perhaps shouldn't have passed the throne to Commodus, which actually reminds me of that famous scene from Gladiator, I'm sure you know the one, where Marcus tries to name General Maximus as heir instead, only for Commodus to, well, react rather violently. How much historical truth is there, really, behind that Hollywood moment?
Gladiator, the movie that made every classics professor both cheer and cringe. Let's separate fact from Hollywood drama. The short answer? False. Mostly. Sorry to disappoint, but Marcus never plotted to give Rome to a general over Commodus. Though I'm sure Russell Crowe would have been a fantastic emperor.
Of course, Russell Crowe would have made a great king. He's as commanding an actor as they come. But Dr. Reese, let's turn to someone very real. Galen, the legendary physician you mentioned earlier. As the foremost medical mind of his era, a man whose work shaped medicine for centuries, what exactly was his role in Marcus Aurelius's court? And, more fascinatingly, how did the philosopher king view him? And we know Galen fled Rome after Marcus's death. Was Commodus's notorious cruelty truly what drove him away? Or is there more to that story?
Galen, Marcus Aurelius's brilliant but thorny court physician. Picture this, a man so proud of his Greek medical training that he once bragged about outsmarting Rome's entire college of physicians, and then proved it by curing Marcus's stomach ailment with a miracle antidote. No wonder Marcus kept him around, even if he rolled his stoic eyes at Galen's ego. But here's the twist. Their relationship was a clash of titans. Marcus, the philosopher king, dissecting human nature, and Galen, the scientist, dissecting actual bodies, literally. The emperor once quipped, "You heal flesh, Galen, I try to heal souls." Then came Commodus. Oh boy. Galen, no fool, fled Rome faster than you can say gladiator bloodbath. Cassius Dio tells us Commodus butchered intellectuals for fun. He vanished back to Pergamum, partly to escape the madness, partly because, let's be real, even the greatest doctor in Rome wasn't sticking around to see if Commodus' next headache cure involved a sword. So after Marcus's death in 180 AD, Galen's circumstances shifted drastically. Historical accounts, particularly Cassius Dio, describe Commodus' growing paranoia and violence, including the execution of scholars and advisors, may have caused the abrupt departure of Galen from Rome.
Dr. Reese, after all these years studying Marcus Aurelius, I have to ask, what's your personal favorite quote of his? The one that stays with you long after the books are closed.
It's a simple line, really. Just 5 words in the original Greek. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Quietly, it's not wisdom. It's a whetstone. Every time I read it, I put down the book and ask, what have I actually done today?
Thank you, Dr. Reese. This has been profoundly illuminating. To glimpse the soul of Marcus Aurelius through your scholarship, his struggles, his wisdom, his enduring humanity, has been nothing short of extraordinary. You've reminded us why his words still resonate across centuries, not as cold philosophy, but as a living challenge to be better.
Thank you, Emma. It's been an honor to share my thoughts on such a timeless figure.
And that wraps up today's episode of History Whispers. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know which historical figure you'd like us to review next. Until next time, listen close, because history always whispers.